having money work for them instead of working for money. You wonder if that's even possible for someone like you. You've tried saving, but inflation eats away at it. You've thought about investing, but you're overwhelmed by all the options and terrified of losing what little you have. Meanwhile, time keeps passing, and you're no closer to the financial freedom you dream about. Here's what nobody tells you. Financial freedom isn't about getting lucky or making a huge salary. It's about making smart long-term investments that compound over decades and eventually generate enough passive income to cover your expenses. And the best investments for building that freedom are simpler and more accessible than you think. Today, I'm going to show you the exact investments that regular people use to achieve financial freedom, how they work, why they're effective, and how you can start building your own freedom portfolio starting today. Let's begin by defining what financial freedom actually means, because it's different for everyone, and it's important to have a clear target. Financial freedom is when your investment income, the money your investments generate without you working, is enough to cover your living expenses. You're not dependent on a paycheck anymore. You could quit your job tomorrow if you wanted to, and you'd be financially okay. That doesn't mean you're a billionaire living in a mansion. It just means you have options. You can choose work you love instead of work that just pays bills. You can take time off without worrying about money. You can live life on your terms. The amount of money you need for financial freedom depends on your lifestyle. If you spend $3,000 a month, you need enough invested to generate $3,000 a month. If you spend $6,000, you need more. But the principle is the same, and the investments that get you there are the same. The first and most important long-term investment for financial freedom is low-cost stock index funds. I know I talk about these a lot, but that's because they're genuinely the best tool available for most people to build wealth over time. An index fund is a fund that holds all the stocks in a particular market index, like the S&P 500 or the total stock market. When you invest in a total stock market index fund, you own tiny pieces of essentially every publicly traded company in America. You're not betting on one company succeeding. You're betting on the entire economy continuing to grow over time, which it has done pretty reliably for over a century. The reason index funds are so powerful for financial freedom is that they provide both growth and income. Over the long term, stock prices tend to rise as companies grow and become more valuable. This capital appreciation builds the value of your portfolio. Many stocks also pay dividends, which are regular cash payments to shareholders. These dividends can be reinvested to buy more shares when you're building wealth, or they can be used as passive income once you reach financial freedom. Let me give you real numbers to show how this works. If you invest $500 a month into a total stock market index fund starting at age 30, and it grows at an average of 8% per year, which is below the historical average, by age 60, you'd have around $750,000. At that point, if your portfolio generates a 4% yield through dividends and some strategic selling, you could take out $30,000 per year to live on without depleting your principal. That's $2,500 a month in passive income. If your living expenses are less than that, you've achieved financial freedom. You can work if you want to, but you don't have to. That's the power of consistent long-term investing in index funds. The specific index funds I'd recommend for long-term financial freedom investing are total stock. Market funds like VTI or ITOT, or S&P 500 funds like VU or SPY, these give you broad exposure to the U.S. economy. You might also include some international stock funds for global diversification. The key is keeping it simple and keeping costs low. Choose funds with expense ratios below 0.1%. Every dollar you save in fees is a dollar that compounds in your favor over decades. The second major investment for financial freedom is real estate, but not in the way most people think. Buying a house to live in can be part of your financial plan, but it's not really an investment for freedom because it doesn't generate income. The real estate that builds financial freedom is income-producing property, specifically rental real estate. When you own rental properties, tenants pay you rent every month. That rent ideally covers your mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, with profit left over. That profit is passive income that brings you closer to financial freedom. Over time, your tenants are essentially paying off your mortgage for you, building your equity, while the property hopefully appreciates in value. Now, I need to be honest about rental real estate. It's not truly passive. Being a landlord involves work. You deal with maintenance issues, tenant problems, vacancies, and all the headaches of property ownership. It also requires significant capital to get started. Down payments, closing costs, and reserves for repairs add up quickly. But for people willing to put in the effort and who have the capital, rental real estate can be an incredible wealth-building and income-generating tool. The combination of rental income, mortgage paydown, tax advantages, and property appreciation creates multiple streams of value. If you don't want to be a hands-on landlord but still want real estate exposure for financial freedom, there's an easier option. REITs, which stands for Real Estate Investment Trusts. A REIT is a company that owns and operates income-producing real estate like apartment buildings, office buildings, or shopping centers. You can buy shares of REITs just like stocks, and by law, they have to pay out 90% of their taxable income as dividends. This means REITs typically have high dividend yields, often 5 to 8% or more. When you invest in REITs or REIT index funds, you're getting real estate exposure and income without having to buy actual property, deal with tenants, or fix toilets. It's a much more accessible way for most people to include real estate in their financial freedom portfolio. The third investment type for financial freedom is bonds and bond funds. Bonds are loans you give to governments or corporations, and they pay you interest in return. Bonds are generally less risky and less volatile than stocks, and they provide steady, predictable income. The trade-off is that bonds typically offer lower returns than stocks over the long term. For building wealth in your younger years, stocks should probably be your primary focus because you need growth. But as you get closer to financial freedom and you start transitioning from wealth accumulation to wealth preservation and income generation, bonds become more important. They provide stability and consistent income that's less affected by market crashes. A balanced approach that many people use for financial freedom is to shift their allocation over time. When you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you might be 80 or 90% stocks, focused on growth. As you approach your target for financial freedom, you gradually shift more to bonds and income-generating assets, maybe ending up at 60% stocks and 40% bonds, or whatever mix gives you enough income with acceptable risk. This gradual shift is sometimes called a glide path. It helps ensure that a market crash right when you're ready to retire doesn't derail your plans. Now let me talk about something that's often overlooked but absolutely critical for financial freedom. Investing in yourself and your earning power. Before you can invest money, you need money to invest. And the fastest way to increase how much you can invest is to increase your income. In your 20s and 30s especially, investing in skills, education, certifications, and career development can provide returns that dwarf what you'd get from financial investments. Spending $2,000 on a course or certification leads to a $10,000 raise. That's a 500% return in year one, and it keeps paying off every year after that. Higher income means you can invest more, which means you reach financial freedom faster. This might mean going back to school, learning a high-value skill like programming or data analysis, getting professional certifications, or even just investing time and becoming excellent at your current job so you're positioned for promotions. It could also mean starting a side business or freelancing to create additional income streams. Every extra dollar you can invest accelerates your path to freedom. I've seen people get so focused on optimizing their investment returns that they neglect the income side of the equation, which is often where you have the most control and the biggest potential gains, especially early in your career. Let me walk you through a realistic path to financial freedom using these investments. Let's say you're 28 years old, making $55,000 a year, and you want financial freedom. You start by calculating your target. If you want to live on $40,000 a year in today's dollars, accounting for inflation, you might need around $1 million invested to safely generate that income using the 4% rule. That sounds like a huge, impossible number, but let's break it down. You commit to investing 15% of your income, which is about $825 a month. You put this into a mix of low-cost, stock index funds, and maybe some REIT funds for real estate exposure. Over the years, you work on your career, learning new skills and positioning yourself for raises. By 35, you're making $75,000. You resist lifestyle inflation, and now you're investing $1,500 a month. By 40, you're at $90,000 and investing $2,000 a month. Throughout this time, your earlier investments have been compounding. By 50, you've built a portfolio of around $750,000. You keep going, maybe shifting a bit more to bonds for stability. By 55, you hit your target of $1 million. You're now generating enough passive income to cover your expenses. You've achieved financial freedom 20 years after you started in your mid-50s instead of 65 or 70. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It took nearly 30 years of consistent investing and career development. But compare that to the alternative. Working until 70 with no financial freedom, always dependent on a paycheck, never having the option to stop working. The person who invested consistently has bought their freedom. They can keep working if they enjoy it, but they don't have to. That choice, that freedom, is worth the decades of discipline. I also want to address some investments that are often marketed for financial freedom, but that I think beginners should be cautious about. Cryptocurrency falls into this category. Some people have made a lot of money in crypto. But it's extremely volatile, speculative, and risky. For every person who got rich, many more lost significant money. Crypto might have a small place in a diversified portfolio, maybe 5% or less, but it shouldn't be a core holding for financial freedom. The same goes for individual stock picking. Unless you really know what you're doing and are willing to dedicate serious time to research, trying to pick winning stocks is more likely to hurt than help your journey to freedom. Stick with boring, diversified index funds for the foundation of your portfolio. Another key to financial freedom that's not about specific investments is controlling your expenses. The lower your living expenses, the less money you need to achieve freedom. Someone who lives on $3,000 a month needs much less invested than someone who lives on $8,000 a month. This doesn't mean living in deprivation. It means being intentional about spending, cutting costs that don't add value to your life, and avoiding the trap of lifestyle inflation where you automatically spend more every time you earn more. The combination of increasing income, consistent investing, and controlled expenses is the triple threat that gets you to financial freedom. I also want to talk about the power of tax-advantaged accounts for building financial freedom. Retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs give you huge tax advantages that accelerate wealth building. In a traditional 4-0-1-K, you invest pre-tax dollars, reducing your taxable income now, and the money grows tax-deferred. In a Roth IRA, you invest after-tax dollars, but the money grows tax-free forever and you pay no taxes when you withdraw it. These tax advantages compound over decades into six-figure differences. Max out these accounts before investing in regular taxable accounts. The exception might be if you want to access the money before retirement age, since these accounts have penalties for early withdrawal. But many people pursuing financial freedom use a combination of retirement accounts for long-term security and taxable accounts for flexibility. Let me give you a simple action plan to start building toward financial freedom today. First, calculate your freedom number. Figure out your annual expenses and multiply by 12. That's roughly how much you need invested to live off 4% withdrawals. Second, build an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months' expenses. This protects you from having to sell investments at bad times. Third, pay off high-interest debt like credit cards because that interest is killing your wealth-building potential. Fourth, contribute to your employer's 401k, at least enough to get the full match. Fifth, open a Roth IRA and start contributing. Sixth, set up automatic monthly investments into low-cost index funds. Seventh, invest in yourself to increase your income. Eighth, track your progress annually and adjust as needed. This journey takes time. You won't achieve financial freedom next year or probably even in 5 years, unless you're starting with a lot of money or have an extremely high income, but that's okay. Every month you invest is a month closer to freedom. Every dollar invested is a soldier working for your future freedom. The key is to start now and stay consistent. Compound growth is slow at first, but it accelerates over time. First 100,000 is the hardest. The next 100,000 comes faster. By the time you're approaching your freedom number, your investments might be growing by more each year than you're adding through contributions. Before we wrap up, I need to remind you that everything I've shared in this video is for educational purposes only and not financial advice. I'm not a licensed financial advisor, and your personal situation is unique. Building toward financial freedom involves risk, and there's no guarantee of results. You should do your own research, understand the risks, and consider consulting with professionals before making investment decisions. My goal is to show you the path others have taken to achieve freedom, not to tell you exactly what to do. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Financial freedom is achievable for regular people through consistent long-term investing in boring, proven assets like stock index funds, real estate, or REITs, and bonds. It's not about getting lucky or making risky bets. It's about starting early, investing consistently, keeping costs low, increasing your income, controlling your expenses, and giving compound growth decades to work its magic. The specific investments matter less than the discipline and consistency. Someone investing in simple index funds and sticking with it for 30 years will almost certainly achieve more financial freedom than someone constantly chasing hot investments and trying to get rich quick. Financial freedom gives you time, which is the most valuable thing you can own. Time to spend with family, time to pursue passions, time to travel, time to do work you love instead of work you have to do for money. That freedom is worth every month of discipline, every dollar invested, every time you chose to invest instead of spend. Start building toward your freedom today, even if you can only invest a little bit. Future you will thank you. If this video gave you a clear path toward financial freedom and motivated you to start taking action, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. And if you want to keep learning about building wealth, achieving financial independence, and making smart investment decisions, subscribe to the channel. In the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to calculate your personal freedom number and build a step-by-step plan to reach it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.